Hi guys, Gilly Hunt here with my A to Z of Stampin' Up products, and I'm up to D for designer series paper. And I'm going to look at all our designer type series papers, and then I'm going to look at all the speciality papers separately, like the vellums and the glitter glimmer papers. So today we're going to look at the designer series papers. So let's have a quick look into the catalogue, which is where we've been going through. So here we go. We have our designer series papers, and these are ever-changing and absolutely fabulous. They come in lots and lots and lots of different styles. I'm going to show you. We have lots and lots of these in our main catalogue, but we also feature these in our various mini catalogues too. So you'll find pages and pages of beautiful papers, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about where to find them and what they all are. So first of all, there are our, for want of a better word, our standard normal designer papers. They're far from normal, they are beautiful, and let me just show you one such set of papers. The papers usually come, and I say usually, so please check because they're not always, but they usually come in packs of 6 designs, but they are double-sided. So on the back of each design there is another different paper, and you get 12 pieces in a pack. So you either get 2 of each of big, bold, bright designer papers or patterned papers, and if I flip them over, you usually get 6 of a different style, usually a background type paper, but I'll show you these as we're going along in the different types. So for example, with this particular one, and I'll tell you how we know what they all are, because when they come with this little background piece of card, and in tiny little print, here we go, it will tell you the name of the paper. So this is See a Silhouette designer series paper, and it will also tell you all the various colours that are involved in this particular set. And that's really amazing, because that means that you can match these up now with any inks, pens, crayons, ribbons, all the accessories. You can match them up with perfectly because you'll know what they are. So we could have 6 of this size, and we'd get 2 of each of those. Okay, or okay, or what we could have, if we split them up differently, is we would end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or we would end up with 12 completely separate different patterns. So what you get then is really 12 completely different sheets, or if you have them the same way round, 6 sets of 2 of each. And that's fairly standard throughout the DSP, although not exactly the same for every single one, but most of them are like that. That's your designer series paper, and we call it DSP. Now on the in the catalogue, there is nearly always, and here they are in this particular catalogue, they're just on the last page actually of the papers. We have designer series papers in a single colour range. Okay, now in the catalogue it's very easy to miss these, because you tend to look at these and think, well, I'm not sure I like that particular green, or I don't particularly want pink, But actually what they are, if you look, are 6 by 6 inch designer series papers. So they're only 6-inch ones, these. But they're available in, listen to this carefully, 40 sheets, 2 each of 2 double-sided designs in 10 colours. So in fact, they are neutrals, brights, subtles or regals. And if you've just watched my C for cardstock and colours in the alphabet, you'll know about those colour families. So go back to see if you don't understand the colour families. But here they are. Now, I personally don't have this season's, so I'm going to show you another season's, but it's the same principle, so you'll understand it. You actually get, for example, if you choose the brights, you get this selection, which is one of each of all of these and one of each of all of those. And again, they're double-sided. So if you really dislike spots, you could turn them all over, all the spotty ones over, and have them all as stripes. So you could suddenly turn the entire pack into a pack of stripes. Or if you really like the spots and not the stripes, you can do vice versa. So you could end up with all spots. But the important thing is, what you get is such a huge range of the colours. And these are the brights, but you could choose the neutrals pack, or you could choose the subtles pack, and you would end up with another complete range of colours. So do look out for those, because they're not terribly obvious in the catalogue. Okay? And last of all, there is another type of paper that we sell in the catalogue, which is designer paper again, but this is called designer speciality paper. Okay, and it's only this word speciality that makes it different. So if we flick back into this catalogue again, let me just go back. So you'll see all the designer paper, and then every now and then you'll see one which says, here we go, here's the one I've just got here. It says Noble Peacock Speciality. And that word speciality, there's another one, look, speciality, and another one. That word speciality means that this particular set of papers has something different about it, something special about it, and it usually means that it has some sort of foil. So for example, these are one of our current speciality papers, and can you see the foiling on that? You can see it glittering. Okay, so you can see it glittering. So that would be one of our sets of speciality papers, and here's a little bag and a little gift wrap I made, and you should be able to see if I can catch it. Oh, there we go. If I can catch it on the camera. You can see the lights catching on the foiling. Okay. Now, these make fabulous items. Here's that set we were looking at, that peacock set. Now, the only thing to realise with these is that sometimes they are, like these are, single-sided. So these aren't double-sided. The ones I showed you a moment ago, the Busy Bee ones, they are double-sided. So some are double-sided still, some are not. Some are thicker. So this particular one is not double-sided because it's actually quite a thick card. And it makes absolutely fabulous boxes. Isn't that a pretty little box? And you can see the lights shimmering and catching on it. Here's the little card I made to go with it. And again, you can see the foiling glittering, can't you? It goes so beautifully with our actual foil papers. So remember, these are totally coordinated to go with things. So there you go. So little card and gift box which glimmer and shine in the light. Now, those cards sometimes have glitter, sometimes they have vellums, sometimes they're thicker like those, sometimes they're thinner and really delicate. Excuse me leaning over. But sometimes that surface means that you can do special things with it. So here's one of our newer foil papers. Now I don't happen to have this set. I've made this lovely card in a class with one of our other demonstrators, Michelle, and isn't that beautiful? Look how that catches that copper foil, okay? But I want to just show you how we do the colour on this. So what we've done is we've taken, let me see if I can just find a couple to show you with. Ooh, here we go. Sorry, I am coming, honestly. I'm just trying to open containers and things. So for example, I might decide that I want to give this some colour like this, okay? And this is how I do it. I take our normal inks and I take a little sponge dauber and I take off some, because you know I don't like using the daubers straight onto the pads, so I take off a little bit onto the side. And now I've collected that onto my little dauber. What I'm going to do is just check it out on a piece of plain paper just to make sure it's not too dark. Oh, that's fine. Okay, and I'm just going to literally, oh, it's squeaky. I'm just literally going to sponge it across onto the leaves because this is green. Okay, and I've taken a couple of different colours, so I've got a little bit of a reddish colour here. So let me find some, oh, what shall we use? Let's use some of this. Let's have a bit of Calypso Coral. So I'm going to put a little bit of the colour, and I'm going to use a little piece of the colour across the middle. And can you see how I'm using the dauber just in a circular motion to bring in the ink onto there? And can you see how I'm starting to load that ink onto there? Okay, now if I took some time and I brought in another colour or two and I really spent some time, this is what I could end up with. And here we've just used Calypso Coral and some Daffodil Delight and some Crushed Curry, which has given me those lovely 3 shades. Okay, and that's what you can do with those special surfaces. You can use the fact that they are resistant to the inks, etc. Okay, so let me just whiz those out of the way. Excuse me making a clanky clankety noise. Now, once you've decided, once you've been into the catalogue and you've chosen your papers that you decided you would like to have, the first thing I'm going to suggest you do is I'm going to suggest that you make yourself a sampler card or a sampler little tag. Okay, now why am I going to suggest you do that? Well, because by the time you get as ancient as me and you've got lots and lots of papers, you will have no idea what you've got. You'll have them all stacked up somewhere and you'll have them all put away neatly, or you'll have them all strewn all over the place, depends on whether you're a tidy or a not so tidy person. But what will happen is you'll lose track of what lovely cards you've got. And so what I used to do is I used to always take a little square, a little 1-inch square of each of the papers as I went. So the first thing I did was just clip a little 1-inch square out of the corner of each piece of paper. That way I now then have a sample piece. On the back I would write down which catalogue it came from. Let's put it the right way up. Which colours were involved so that I knew I could match it up to the right green or the right blue or the right pink, whatever. And that way I could flick through this and go, ah, that's the one I want. I want that one. I like that one. I wonder where I've got it. And I would give myself a little number on the back which told me which packet it was in on my shelves. Now that was fine. So I could flip through and I knew I'd got, oh, hold on, I've got a card like that. I've got some cards with little butterflies on. That's great. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, now that's fine. But now I'm a demonstrator. and going out to events and things, what I've decided to do is actually make those into something more like a card. So I now make a little designer card, which is the same little 12 squares, but I kind of look for little bits within them to cut out. So that was the little golfer. This one, for example, was our honeybees, and I just coloured in the bee and put a little embellishment on. This was the the bird ballad set, and I've just cut out some of the birds and added a few little birds across and a seagull flying across as well. Now that way I can have those up at an event and they look rather fabulous, they look lovely, and they're also really informative because inside I have exactly the same. I tell myself what it is, when it came into the catalogue, and which colours are there. Okay, once again, much simpler one because this only has black, whisper white and foil, and I know that this was part of the celebration. So that way I can have those, and what I do is I then each season I pop those into a little box, and I have a little index card box with those in, and I will probably put a little tag on the top to just so I can find them quicker, and I'll put them in alphabetical order. That way I can find them easily, but I can also spin them out and go, hold on, what am I looking for? Yes, I want something like that for my design. Okay, so that's just a little piece of advice, and if you do that at the beginning, you know you've got it ready. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you quite a lot of lovely examples of all the various papers that we have. I'm not going to do this as a here's this paper, here's that paper. I'm going to give you lots of cards to have a look at. And the first thing I want you to think about is when you're looking for your papers, it's very easy to get carried away with what I call the designer side of the papers, because if you remember, I said quite often there is a designer side. So for example, this is Follow Your Art designer series paper, and you get 12 sheets as normal, and they're all 12 by 12s. I've just cut them down so that they're easier under the camera, and they're actually really busy and quite bright and quite ooh. And I must say, the first time I saw them, I thought, oh my word, I'm not sure I like those. They're a bit much. But when you turn them over, they're really soft and subtle. So let's show you the soft and subtle pack. So if I'd shown you that pack of cards, they're quite different. And remember, you know, depending on whether you want to or not, you could in fact use them all that way up. In which case you've got a very soft, subtle palette of colours. Or having them all the designer way up means you would have quite a popping and jazzy and quite eclectic selection of bright papers. So you can go from something as very subtle as this, and this is made, this very subtle, very quiet, very subdued, laid back card is made from this designer series of papers. So always look closely when you're deciding whether you like something or not, look closely at what the reverses are, because sometimes actually the reverses are more up your street than actually the patterned papers are. Or you might like both. But the lovely thing is, if there's one you really dislike, then you can nearly always turn it upside down. So what can we make with our designer papers? Well, we can take very simple things. We can take the actual papers. We don't need to bring in anything else other than a little bit of glue and a little bit of white card. And we can just cut away. So this is the reverse. Here is the designer paper cut into a strip, and here are some little pieces from that strip cut out and just mounted in front on a dimensional. How simple is that? And here's a little gift card to match it. So just the same, little background paper, mounting them up, and open it up. We can even use the back of the paper, which looks fabulous because this is only a little card. It's stiff enough for that. And we can just mount it up so we can put a little gift card sort of mini. So we can use the actual papers just as they are with nothing else, absolutely nothing else if we want to. So that's the first thing I'm going to tell you. Oh, and that was, I'm trying to think what that one was from. That one is from Best Dressed. Thank you. It's from the Best Dressed selection. Okay, so how about some Country Lane? And again, we can do things with I'm just going to pop this up so that it stands up for you. We can make ourselves some little bags using the Designer Series paper, because it is, you can hear it, it's lovely and firm, stands up. That's a really tall bag. That's actually, you know, quite a length, that bag. And it's tall, but it's also strong enough to stand up of its own accord and to be really nice and crisp when it's folded. Again, just like many of our other papers, when you fold it, it doesn't crack, it doesn't split. It gives you a lovely, nice, crisp, firm edge. So really good to be folded and scored. And the lovely thing, remember, is that you can do little tiny things. Like here, I've wrapped little chocolates, and all I've done is put a little piece, a little tiny strip of the same paper around it, and that makes for a beautiful little set together. And I've just popped a little card in there, and suddenly we've got a really nice thank you gift for someone. Okay, so let me just bring in the next little selection, and here I've got whole trays. I'm going to tip them in for you. Here we go. I've also got to tell you that nearly all of the papers have a real feel to them. So far we've had things that are a little bit glitzy with the foil. So we had this lovely sheeny shiny foil. We've had something a bit more subtle and simple. We've had a little bit of pretty girly papers, and now here we have a set of papers which sets the scene for a party. Absolutely wonderful for a party. So these, let me just get them the right way up for you. Oh, I haven't got enough room. Little tiny gift cards, because they're great for little kids' parties, and we can just use the backgrounds for creating really pretty little things. Here's your piece of designer paper in the background, and all I've done is cut out a number 7 and embellished it like mad with some pretty little sequins and some gems. Here you go, try and make it sheen and shine for you. I've also got this time I cut out from the paper, okay, and this is from the Birthday Bonanza papers, and some of the papers have got quite big sort of characters on, so they can be cut out. I've also got a little bit of background paper, and all I've done is cut it with a really lovely sunrise punch, so it has a little bit of a zigzaggy old-fashioned, you know, we used to use pinking shears. It's a bit like a pinking shear background, and then I've just cut out the happy birthday sentiment and stuck it across. So really simplistic cards, but they make fabulous cards and set the scene for a party. Here's my lollipop holder, a little lollipop holder folded across, and all I've done is literally cut out the little pelican. Is it a toucan or a pelican? Oh, it's a toucan, isn't he? From the designer paper with his silly hat on, and he sits on a whole bunch of ribbon for a fun little design. Little Easter baskets. I've got a video on how to make these little baskets, so look that one up. In fact, you'll find there are videos on how to make quite a number of these cards. If you go onto YouTube and you search for Gilly Hunt, a lot of them will come up. So it's worth having a look. If you spot one and think, oh, I'd like to make that, just go check, see if I'm making it. If I'm not making it and you're absolutely desperate and you want instructions, then what I suggest you do is add a comment into the comment box below, and I'll make sure I can help you out with that one. Okay, so little baskets, and this one I've definitely done as a video, my ta-da card. So all of these set the scene, I suppose, and they also fit and match with the ribbons and the embellishments. Okay, now once we've got, I'm trying to get things in and out of the way here from the camera. The other thing I did say was that, you remember me saying that sometimes things can be one-sided or two-sided. So let me put those the right way up. Here, for example, is quite a, I think the Scottish word would be dour. It's quite a dour selection. They're all quite dark and quite deep colours, and quite a sort of almost mono colour scheme. And then one of the sheets has lots and lots of these on. In fact, this is a small cut of it. I think we get 9 of those on a 12 by 12 sheet, 9 little miniature pictures. But if I was to turn this selection over, wow, you wouldn't call that a mono colours, would you? So again, depending on which ones you're going to use and which one you choose to use, you end up with quite different designs and quite a different feel. And actually, when I spotted this selection, I thought, I don't have too many golfing friends, but I do love these plaids. And aren't they lovely? And these tartans, plaids and tartans, wouldn't they be lovely for wonderful homely Christmassy cards? So do have a look at both sides really clearly and carefully when you're deciding which ones you want. And I'm going to show you. It's quite different feel. So this is one of the cards I made using this set, and I've just used that simple Harlequin style background, and I've then used, where's it gone? I can't find it. Oh, it's on the back of here, that's why. And then I used some of the little pictures that are on the back. I used the male golfer as opposed to the female. And I've just simply put paper on top of paper on top of paper, and that makes a really simple design. Now the lovely thing to do, I think, quite often when you're using these DSPs is to make little banners. Now I've only used 2 little tiny taggy ones there, these 2 here. I call them little banners, and I make a little V in the top of them, and they make really lovely little embellishments almost in their own right. So taking that idea further, I've then created a golfing gift bag and a little golfing card to match, and all I've used is the grey papers and the little yellow golf cart paper, and then I've teamed it up with some ribbon and some cardstock. And remember, this is where it's lovely, because Stampin' Up match your DSPs perfectly with the cardstock. So this, which is actually the curried cardstock, and I'm trying to think of what it's called. Oh my goodness, my brain is gone absolutely AWOL at the moment. Crushed curry. It's the crushed bit. I can never remember the crushed bit. I don't know why. I seem to have a complete blank on crushed curry. But what I've done is I've used the crushed curry to match up, and then I've cut out the little details. So again, I've hardly used any colouring. I've not used much stamping. That's the only little piece of stamping, is the actual wording. Everything else is really made out of just designer papers. So just using those designer papers and cutting them out, let's go from the Country Club to the Best Dressed. Now these are the florals from the Best Dressed. The Best Dressed was the set I used earlier for these lovely perfume bottles, but also within that set are some florals. And these are some of the florals. And don't they make a lovely set of gift cards? So yet again, we can either just cut out some of the images from within the papers and mount them up on a couple of dimensionals. And I've used the trio punch. Here's the punch that I used to make the rounded corners, and also to punch out the little hole, which makes it just makes a bit more professional. So that's a really good little punch to buy to give you rounded corners and a rather more professional little oval hole for your tags. So this one is just cut out, this one's cut out, and then I've added a strip of the same designer series paper underneath it, and that just gives you a little more I suppose just a little more added depth to your design. And this time, just to show you that not only can we use one pack of paper, but when we swap and change between different packs of papers, our guarantee on our colour match is so important, because look how beautifully that goes. This is the Country Lane paper, and this is part of the Best Dressed paper, and look how beautifully those greens match. They are not just almost the same green, they are the same greens. And that way you can mix and match between your papers to create your effects as well. So look out between the papers. Sometimes you'll find a really lovely design that you like, and you want to cut it out, and then you think, but I don't really want it on the pack I've got. I know, I've got another piece of pack with a background paper that will look nice with that. Okay. Now I'm going to bring you in one of my team's makes. So thank you very much, Lexi. Lexi is in my team, and she is making some beautiful cards. She started with me in class about 3 or 4 years ago now. We've been together quite a long time, and she's a wonderful lady. And she is, when we first started, she said, oh, I can't make that, I'm not artistic, and I can't do this and I can't do that, and oh, I'm not very happy with that, and unless it was absolutely perfect she would not enjoy making things. Now she makes beautiful cards, and I wanted to feature one of her cards. She gave me this as a swap, and I love it. It's just simple, it's just a real joy and delight in the way that she uses the designer paper to shine above everything else. So that's the card she made, and I then made a little bag to go with it, because I thought it deserved a little partner in crime, and I wanted to show off that paper too, the feathers. So let me just open up the bag and show you inside. So I wanted to show off the feathers, but I also didn't want it to be sort of two things that were matchy-matchy. I wanted them to mix and match. And so I've used the feathers inside the bag, and I've used the other side of that paper, which is this lovely bird cage. And I've again cut out, I didn't use the same punch, I used a different punch to make this one because I didn't have that one, but I used the same white embossing powders with the lettering, and then I cut out some of the little birds from the same series paper. And doesn't that make a nice mix and matched thank you gift for someone? I might even gift it back to her, which would be very cheeky, wouldn't it, if she does something I'm thankful for. And she's often doing things I'm thankful for, so that's wonderful. And last but not least, whilst I was playing with the designer paper, that's this one, which is the Bird Ballad, I started to look at the reverse again. I started to look at the reverse on the inside of the bag, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice just to chop a little cut across and fold back some pieces so we get the reverse of the birds. So lots of ways just of showing the reverse. Okay, now once I started thinking about reverses while I was away, and I was into creating a lovely box, because these are such lovely crisp papers, they make lovely boxes. So there, first of all, there's my card, a rather pretty little sailing boat. And always the designer papers are brilliant, what I call scene setters. So we can use them as the base backgrounds to create our little scene on. So here's my little scene, my little sailing boat in its circle, and the various elements from the same suite. This is the Come Sail Away suite. And then I thought, let's make a little box. So here's my little box. I've used the designer paper just almost as a ribbon, just to give us a little stripe all the way around. So I've only used that much. It's only that wide, on a Night of Navy base. And I've made a simple little box. And then I've made the lid. And onto the top of the lid, I've added a little folded packet. And I'm going to show you how to make these in a video later in the year. So look out for this one, because it's great fun. Because look what happens here. Not only is it quite pretty, but it opens up, and inside you can have another little surprise card. So you can put your little gift card, or you could put some money in there, or you could put a little surprise message. It's a great little one to gift something to someone with, and all you do is tuck it in, flatten it down, and it becomes the lid of your box. So I will do a little video on how to make those later on in the year, so look out for those. But that's a great way to show the designer papers off, and it shows both sides of your paper. Not only do you get that on the inside, but you get this lighthouse on the outside from the designer papers. Okay. Now, once I got into reverses and the backs of papers, I then realised that a lot of my designs that I've ever done in the past with reverse papers included pieces like this, where in fact what I've done is I have folded the card, and the moment you start to fold the papers, I keep calling them card and paper, they are all papers, but they're such lovely crisp quality paper that they feel a little like card. Now what happens is I've made this into little pleats, and each of those pleats shows a little tiny bit of the reverse side of the paper, and then I've used the reverse side of the paper to make a band, and so on the top. So once we start to fold these papers, this is where, here's another little lovely folded paper, we get to see the backs of those. Okay, so folding papers is a really great way to show off these designer series papers. It also gives you much broader, wider range of the paper. It really shows it off nicely. And the other thing that you can do is you can use those designer papers to make yourself an envelope liner, which I'm going to show you how to do in a moment. So I then got on to thinking about designer papers and envelopes. Oh my goodness, there's so much you can do with designer papers. So here is my two quite simple, rather nice, but simplistic little cards, but made very pretty by adding just a strip of the card, of the designer paper around the envelope. So it just goes round, and I've given it a little V shape so that when you write the address, that will just appear in the bottom corner. But that just makes those very simple little cards feel very special, because they have envelopes to match. Something you can't buy in the shops, something you don't get by just wandering out and spending your couple of quid or so on a card. Okay. So I said I'd show you how to make that, so I'm going to just do that now with you. Okay, so first and foremost, and I think I have made a mistake because I think I've left my scissors downstairs. I think I have, so I'm just going to go and grab another pair of scissors. So we'll just use a big chunky pair that I've got here. Okay, so first of all I'm going to get a little piece of paper. In fact, this one's a little bit too big, and I'm going to just take the liner part way into the card, because I don't want to waste the whole of the back. You could take it all the way to the bottom if you want to, but I think as long as we've got it in that far, just beyond where the opening is, it's going to look fine. Okay, and this is how I do it. I don't measure it, I just go quite carefully, but with my scissors around the edge like that. Now you're going to say, yeah, but that won't fit. No, because it's too big. Okay, that's going to be too big. But what I have now is the outline. Okay, now all I'm going to do is I'm now going to go round it once more, and it's almost the reverse of fussy cutting. You know when you cut round something really carefully and you just leave a little gap on the outside? I've now fussy cut the inside. That now means that that's going to be a little bit smaller, and that will fit perfectly into my envelope. And all I need to do now is put a little bit of tape or a little bit of glue on the tops, and I leave the bottom loose. Oh, excuse me. I'm still trying to get rid of this silly cough. Now, once I've done that, I then just make sure it's folded neatly and scored so that that will always stay inside nice and neatly. And that's why I don't tend to stick down the bottom edge, because I like it to have a little bit of movement still, which means it will absorb that fold as it comes and goes. It won't wrinkle up. So I just attach it at the top, and that makes for beautiful card interiors. Okay, so I thought, now I've got that one, I need some cards to go with it. So here's something else you can do with your designer series papers. What you can do is you can do some paper piecing. We call it paper piecing. And I'm not going to show you how to do those today, because I'm definitely going to be looking at paper piecing as one of my videos in the future. So look out in about, I think it's about 3 or 4 videos time. So around and about 31 or 32, I think it will be, video 31 or 32. But around about there, you'll see one which says paper piecing, and that'll be these. Aren't they lovely? And all they are is a stamped image with the papers pieced on top of it. And I'll show you how to do that in that video. Okay, so that's something else you can do with your designer series papers. Okay, we're getting towards the end. A couple more I just want to show you. Ooh, excuse me leaning over again, because I'm just getting to the end of my table. I wish I had longer arms. It'd be great, wouldn't it? Now here's a couple of 2 sides of the Tropical Oasis paper pack, and I thought I'd show you just some very simple little cards. I haven't made these into major works of art or anything, but just fun little note cards. But I've shown you the idea. And don't forget, when you get down to your last little pieces, and here's trauma now for you, when you get down to the tiniest little circle, or you get down to the tiniest little strip and stripe, don't throw it away. Jill says, don't throw it away. Definitely keep it, because you can use those to weave together to make really pretty little note cards. So here's 2 or 3 different, this is part of the Oasis, but it's also part of the Garden Lane designer series too, because it's picked up the green. Okay, here's some tiny little, I've made this using the little tiny punches, circle punches I have, and I've punched a circle out and then a circle out of the middle, and then split them and linked them together. Okay, and maybe just some very simple little banners all pointing into the corner. So really simple, using both sides of your papers, easy ways to use your designer series paper. Even more simplistic, this I'm afraid is an older paper, you can't get this anymore, but it was one that I had, and I thought I'd just go to show you, because again, it's using up your scraps and a little lolly stick. a lolly stick, use up your scraps, cut them into little pieces, and you've got the most lovely little Christmas tree. Dead cheap, easy way to use up your papers at the end of the Christmas period. Okay, and last but not least, just a reminder for you that, and this is a card I've used when we were doing our sweets information, and just to remind you that most of these designer papers, because they're in the Stampin' Up collections, and Stampin' Up are such a genius company for this, many of them are also parts of special suites. So they have the designer papers, and they have matched ribbons for that suite, they have matched embellishments. So make the most of using the other things in the suite to make your cards up. But I hope you'll agree that that was a quick cook's tour of our designer series paper, and the difference between the designer series and the speciality series papers is simply that the speciality ones have a little bit of extra surface embellishments in the way of foils, vellums or glitters, glimmers, etc. Look for the information, make sure you know whether you're getting a 6x6 or a 12x12 paper. They're all acid and lignin free, and they're absolutely fabulous to work with. So go away, enjoy, design away like mad, and look out for my other numbered videos where many of these will be shown and where I'll show you how to make them all individually. Okay, thanks very much, and we're on to E for extra sticky and extra sharp, which will be my guide to all the scissors, trimmers and all the adhesives that we have. Thanks very much for watching. See you again later. Bye bye.